It seems like it's impossible to escape from the Poppy Playtime factory now. We're deeper than we could ever imagine, and several paths back have been closed off to us. But by analyzing the places we've passed through in the factory, I've realized that there are several options that could serve as an exit for us. So, let's find out what options player has to escape if he finally gets scared and doesn't want to continue anymore. The first way to escape the factory, and the most obvious one, would be to go back the way player came in. The bad thing is that now he's deep inside, and there's no way to get back up to the surface. But the truth is that there is a possibility that there might be a direct way out from the deepest part. In the tape-restricted condemnation released by Mob Entertainment, Preston Willard and Jessica Newman managed to survive the Hour of Joy. And in the middle of this massacre, they were able to put together a map of the level they were on. When we get back to that elevator, it should be a direct shot to the surface. But here, do you see? Does the elevator connect to the executive elevator? I don't think it does. And here we have the executive elevator, a direct way up, designed only for the most important people at Playtime Call. That elevator is close to the laboratories, exactly the area we've been exploring. In Chapter 5, that means player could be much closer to that exit than we think. But there's a huge obstacle that player faces: the prototype. As we know, the prototype does everything possible to make sure no one can leave the factory. And well, I don't think the prototype is naive enough to leave that elevator working so player can escape. So most likely, that elevator will be completely ruled out. But if the elevator isn't an option, don't worry, we still have this second possibility. From Chapter 1 to Chapter 5, we could tell that the factory is much bigger than we thought. But the most interesting thing about this is that it not only has places that are still functional, but we've also seen several means of transportation, including 2 trains. First, we had the game station train, then another one that takes us straight to the prison. But in addition to this, we also came across a tram that was already approaching the deeper areas of the factory. Well, yes, friends, these trains could be the other escape route that player could take. And the one we're most interested in is the game station train. If we remember a bit of the story, we know that this train wasn't just any train. It could literally leave the factory. And I know, player had the perfect opportunity to escape. Until the track switched and that train was completely destroyed. And well, maybe you think that was the end of that possibility. But if you look a little further, the route that the game station train was following remains intact. Maybe player won't be able to leave unless it's on another vehicle, following this same route. Also, in Project Playtime, it has been revealed that there are multiple trains of that same type. And most importantly, they are all connected to the same rail system, which means all is not lost. Because if only one of these trains has been destroyed, it means the others are still out there. Even Jessica Newman herself referred to this. Maybe Tyron All4, the server, the train terminal, and the train could give player a real chance to get out of the factory. But in case for some strange reason player can't find any of these other trains or the routes have collapsed, we still have another ace up our sleeve. In Chapter 5, we had the return of Harley Sawyer, and so far, we don't know exactly what his purpose is. But if he turns out to be our ally in Chapter 6, he would be our other way out, and actually, it would be one of the most logical ones. Let me explain. If we go back to Chapter 4, they implied that Harley kept the entire security system under control, and he could do whatever he wanted, which means he practically knows the whole factory. So he can see all the exit routes in Playtime Company. Another point in his favor is that he worked in the factory for a long time. And obviously he must know even the most secret place. Knowing this, of course, he could guide player to a real exit. Also, something that Harley Sawyer has in common with player is that he also hates the prototype. So, if you ask me, that's already an advantage. And well, I know you're going to tell me that now we don't know how much control Harley Sawyer has without the Omni Hand, but that's not the point. since player only needs instructions for this route, although honestly, the idea of trusting Dr. Sawyer sounds a bit crazy. But anyway, we don't have that many options. What do you guys think? Do you think we can trust Harley Sawyer to get out? And before getting to the last option, one alternative that many have pointed out about how to escape the factory is simply to blow up the factory. But it's not as easy as it seems, because now player is deep inside. So it wouldn't do any good to blow up the factory if player ends up buried. Besides, it would take a lot of fuel to blow up the entire factory, and with low chances that player would survive. Another way out we could consider in a desperate attempt are the cars we see throughout the chapters. If we remember, there were a few cars, almost at the end of chapter 4. But there were also others in which the experiments were transported, and they only had a toilet in the back. The curious thing is that in chapter 5 we see one that somehow went through a wall, possibly someone trying to escape during the hour of joy. So if player could just break a bit of this wall and position himself in front of the car, most likely there is a path these cars would follow, and it would probably lead to an exit. He could even look for a way to start one of the cars and take the same path wherever they were driving. I mean, in chapter 5 he was able to get Lily's car running, so why not get one of the other cars we saw working? But if all these options fail, we still have one last chance. It's just that it's the most unstable and dangerous of all, and of course, I'm talking about the caves. Deep inside the factory, we not only find the laboratories, but also a very complex system of caves that no one knows how far they go. If player is lucky, I think one of these underground routes could take him straight to the surface. And I leave it as a last option, because honestly, inside these caves, player would really be putting his life at risk. He would have to move forward in the dark and without a map to know exactly where he is. But that's not the only bad thing about this option. We still have the prototype as an enemy, and defeating him really seems impossible. Besides, he's practically immortal, and we've already seen that he's after player. So, what would you choose? Trust Harley Sawyer or go on adventures through the caves? But if this option is no longer viable, I think it's time to panic. Well, we know that player arrived at the factory because of a letter, and I know many have wondered why we don't see the involvement of any special forces or police. Many people think that player's only way out is really to wait for someone or some authority to find him, but honestly, I think that way out is pretty much impossible. Besides, if they did manage to find player, he probably wouldn't even be alive anymore. And just think about it. Would any special forces or police really survive all the experiments? But what do you think? Do you think player will manage to escape from the factory? Or is it definitely a lost cause? We'll read your comments.